Welcome to the Love the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas, joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan in Dallas. He's also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network. Brian Broaddus, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Robert. How about yourself?
I'm great because I'm sitting right now in a pair of Chill Boys underwear, as we've been talking about. Thank you once again to Chill Boys. They are fantastic. If you want to get a pair of Chill Boys underwear, if you want to get into my underwear, if you want to get into Brian's underwear, you can. It'll cost you a little bit, but a very little bit, because they'll give you 15% off by entering promo code STAR at checkout. So chillboys.com, promo code STAR. Thank you again to Chill Boys.
Yes, thank you to Chill Boys. And also, check out the Chill Boys socks too.
You're a fan of those.
I'm a big fan because I'm into now the walking and running, trying to get a little bit more of a healthier side of my life. Mm-hmm. And the Chill Boys socks, super comfortable, super cushy. So when you're doing those 3-mile walks or you're involved with the runs, man, they are super, super comfortable to wear. They don't catch. They fit very nicely into your shoe. And so, yeah, not only the underwear, the socks, the T-shirts, Chill Boys, all good stuff.
15% off, promo code STAR. You can get all of it. Okay, Brian Broaddus, we have some movement, potentially, on the free agent market. We have one thing that has been called clickbait, and another that has been called very real, it appears, and then another that is my own personal fantasy that I would like to engage you on and see if we might be able to make a deal. Let's start with the first one, that is reality. Let's deal in reality. Reality is always good. And that is the news that Zay Jones, as of Wednesday afternoon here at 12:48 as we record this, Zay Jones is coming to visit the Dallas Cowboys. He's a former second-round pick, 2017, receiver out of East Carolina, played for the Raiders, the Bills, most recently for the Jaguars. Kind of had a breakout in 2022, a little bit of a late bloomer, but 29 years old next season, the son of former Cowboys linebacker Robert Jones, who was on those Super Bowl teams with Ken Norton Jr., Darren Smith. He was in that linebacker core. But Brian, the interest in Zay Jones, it doesn't totally surprise me because I think that there is a need for some depth. We talked about that in the last episode. So a guy who's out there, a former second-round pick, has that pedigree, who you might be able to get for a value. This is the type of guy that I would expect the Cowboys to at least kick the tires on.
Yeah, in talking to some people with the Jaguar organization, I know several people there. I used to work there. Some really positive things were said about him. The one thing I got was from a couple of different people were, great dude. The knee, the ankle were a problem last year for him that he was having to deal with. He's a clutch guy. The quarterback really, really relied on him. They were a better team when him and was on the field with Calvin Ridley, because with Ridley, he was new to the program, new to the system, and that Zay Jones was there to kind of help him with the lining up, the moving around, the routes, the stuff like that. He's got very good body control as a receiver. His hands are good. The speed is just okay, and they've kind of tried to teach him how to run and to become maybe a little bit more quicker, maybe a little bit more fluid. They were trying to work with them, but the injuries were a problem with there. I was told a better route runner than what you had with Michael Gallup. So that's what you're kind of looking at right there. I was also told, think about him more outside in than inside out as a player. So those are the kinds of things that Zay Jones brings. I would say this, Bobby, and I'm going to let you expand on this. Is this would it be a wake-up call or a little bit more of a wake-up call after what they did with Flournoy, the draft, and then now potentially going to get Zay Jones for a guy like Jalen Tolbert?
Yeah, it's interesting. Jalen Tolbert had, I talked about this on Wednesday's episode of Sean and RJ. There was actually a little bit of an interesting quote from him. So Jalen Tolbert has switched to the number 1 jersey. He's switched away from 18. He's going to wear number 1, which single digit, that means something in college programs. Like a few college programs, that's a meaningful thing. I think at Temple, it used to be during Matt Rule's era, that was just like a sign of the toughest players were single digits. Mm-hmm. And so it was a little interesting. Jalen Tolbert at I think at the home run derby the other night that the Cowboys have, talked about him changing his number, and he said it's a blessing. Not a lot of people get to play for the Cowboys, but also to be able to wear a single digit, one that holds a little value like that one. I love the opportunity I have in front of me and looking forward to representing that number one well, just as Cedric Wilson did when he had it on. I didn't know that we were doing anything yet where the number one was like a single digit was a thing with the Cowboys. That's new to me. But overall, I mean, you can tell he's trying to lock in. He's trying to, I think he understands the gravity of this is kind of it for him. And does Zay Jones push that forward? Maybe. I think Zay Jones right now is probably a better football player than Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah.
And so for me, I would have a lot of interest in at least kicking the tires, seeing how healthy Zay Jones is, and upgrading that position. Along those same lines, I want to bring up, and we'll continue to talk about Zay Jones during this as well, but I want to bring up my fantasy suggestion here, Brian, which I don't know if you happen to hear it on Sean and RJ this morning. I brought it up, but my suggestion is this. Did you see the news out of Tennessee yesterday?
No, I did not.
Tyler Boyd is reuniting with his former offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan, $4.5 million deal. That means your three starting receivers right now in Tennessee are DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, and Tyler Boyd. Not a lot of room for 2 years removed from being a first-round pick, wide receiver Treylon Burks, who has been a disappointment to this point and was a guy that this Dallas Cowboys team loved. Yeah. They loved Treylon Burks coming out of Arkansas. So, Brian, my question is, would you pick up the phone and at least call the Titans and say, what would it take to take Treylon Burks off your hands? You guys are clearly soured on him a little bit there, and he's been a little bit of a disappointment. But, man, you're talking about 2 years removed. He was in the same draft with Tyler Smith. You're talking 2 years removed from an evaluation where they were big fans of his. I don't know the exact grade, but I believe he was high second round for them. So a guy that they were big fans of, I would at the very least call and say, hey, would a fourth do it? Would you take a fourth round pick? We got a bunch of fifth round comps. I would absolutely. If you're telling me sign Zay Jones or pick up the phone and call on Treylon Burks, I am all in on taking a risk on Treylon Burks to come in here and see if it might be able to click for him here, especially with Robert Prince being the type of receivers coach that he is.
I like what you're trying to do here, Bob. I really, really do. I think I'm more inclined, and I said this on Cowboys Break this morning when I was on, I'm more inclined to take one of those compensatories and see where we're at in the running back market, in the running back room. I was one of those guys. I liked Burks a lot. I loved his size. His tape was really good.
Yeah, I was
There's
a fan.
that connection. The connection with the Arkansas stuff, I think, is very, very strong. If I'm going to, and people are going to say, well, Dan Broadus, why don't you do both? Why don't you take your compensatories of those ones you're going to get and go get a runner and go get a wide receiver? I'm interested to see now if they get Jones done and with Flournoy and see how that works first. But I'm more interested in taking draft capital and looking and try to help the running back situation. I have a feeling, Bobby, we're going to get to Oxnard and we're going to watch some of these 9-on-7 drills, and maybe the backs don't look like they can do it, And so I'm more interested in trying to make a move for somebody's surplus back that I know could come in. I think the offensive line upgrades will be clear when we get to Oxnard. We'll see those drills. We'll see whether they can run the football. They might be in a situation where they were like when they had to go get Amari Cooper, where receiver by committee is not the route that they needed to go. And they quickly identified that. I give them credit. I think they could do the same thing at this running back spot. So if we're going to make a move, I'm going to make a move for a runner right now over a receiver.
Well, and let's talk about making a move for runner, because there was chatter earlier this week that after the Steelers didn't pick up the fifth-year option on Najee Harris, that 93.7, the Fan, actually, a sister station in Pittsburgh, had, I guess, floated. I don't know if it was a suggestion or how it got started, but they had floated out there the idea that the Cowboys could be interested in Najee Harris. That seemed to get shot down very quickly. Jane Slater shot it down. I think you had called some people, sounded like it wasn't going that way. Todd Archer, same sort of thing, said, nope, not happening. So Najee Harris is out. But is that the kind of guy that you would be looking for? Is like, let me go find a physical runner. Let me go find a guy who maybe is on a last year of his deal, who a team's looking to move something for. Is that the type of value the Cowboys need to be hunting right now?
Yeah, that's where, to me, Najee Harris softens the sting of not picking a guy at 87.
Good player.
Yeah. So if I can move a 5th round pick for Najee Harris, I think I'm looking at that route right now, because I think my offensive line upgrades are going to be good. I need these backs to be as good as I think this offensive line is going to be run blocking. I'm betting on Terrence Steele's health being better. I'm betting on the physicality of BB coming in and taking that job at center. I think another year of growth at guard for Tyler Smith. We'll see what happens at the left tackle spot, but they've done a great job with plug-and-play dudes. That's my hope. But if these backs don't match the ability of what you've developed with this offensive line or what you've got with this offensive line, I would not let this thing go 2, 3, 4 weeks into the season. I would make sure this is taken care of right now.
Before we move on to some comments Stephen Jones had about Dak Prescott's contract situation.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I'm going to give you a hypothetical, okay? So I'll give you scenarios here. I know you said you'd rather spend the capital on running back right now, but let's say, and obviously Najee Harris is not happening, but just a hypothetical.
Can I ask you something real quick?
Yeah.
Can I ask you something real quick?
Yeah.
Would you rather spend the capital? I'll give you another position. Give me another position. Okay. Would you spend it on another defensive tackle? Or is there a position that you have in mind, since you know you're going to have compensatory picks? Is there a position that you would go hunt?
I guess it depends on what, like the amount, right? So like if you tell me a 4th rounder is what it's going to cost for you to get the running back versus a 6th rounder for a safety or a 7th rounder for a receiver, that may change my answer.
Say it's 5. Say the going rate for picking up a position you want
across the board as a 5th.
Across the board's a 5th.
Then yeah, running back would be the top, and then after that, I'm looking at probably some collection of receiver, safety, defensive tackle.
Yeah.
That's probably what I'm looking at. Now, here's the question for you. If I tell you you can have Najee Harris for a 3rd, Treylon Burks for a 5th, or Zay Jones for the veteran minimum, which of those are you going for?
I think I'd give the 3rd for the running back.
Woo! Strong. I like it.
I'll tell you what, Bobby.
In fact, that is our Chill Boys ballsy take of the day. Brian Broaddus would pick that one.
I appreciate Chill Boys.
Chillboys.com, promo code STAR.
That was tough but I'll tell you what, Bobby. I was willing to take it back at 387.
Yeah. You're hoping you're picking at the back end of the 3rd.
Yeah, I was hoping that I was willing to take. 373 didn't work out because I think I got my start in center, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But at 387. And when I say 387, folks, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you. 3rd round, 87th pick. 387, I was willing to take a runner, and I think I would do it again for that type of player.
Now, you get 1 year, too. You're only getting 1 year because that 5th-year option's already been declined.
You know what? I'm hopeful that Najee Harris, but we saw what happened with this running back market this year in the spring.
Rebounded a little.
Those guys got paid.
Yeah.
So you might be out of 387. But maybe it's one of those things too that you could it works out, and all of a sudden you got a good fit with the offensive line, you got a good fit with the back. The coach keeps his job. Maybe there's a lot of positivity there for signing a guy to an extension like that.
You are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, on the topic of re-signing guys and extensions and everything else, we did get another Stephen Jones quote this week about Dak Prescott and his contract situation. So this is the full quote transcribed by John Machota at The Athletic. He says, Stephen Jones said it's a, quote, priority to get a new contract done with Dak Prescott, and, quote, franchise quarterback contracts, they just take time. And he went a little bit further on believing Dak can win a Super Bowl in Dallas. He said, absolutely. I totally think Dak can lead us to a championship. He does everything the right way. He's certainly the leader of this football team. He keeps everybody motivated in the offseason. He's got everybody working out and doing all the things that it takes to put in the work to give yourself every opportunity to win a championship. It just so happens that sometimes that old oblong football doesn't bounce your way. And we've had some tough breaks and tough games there in the postseason, but we've won 12 games 3 years in a row. I think that's right at the top in terms of what teams have done over a 3-year period, and we're hanging around the rim. We've just got to go up there and grab it, to use a basketball term, and dunk it in. We're hanging around the rim. We just got to get the job done. Now, what's interesting, Brian, is in the last couple of weeks, like I mentioned, over on Sean and RJ on 105 through the Fan, we interviewed John Machota recently, who transcribed that quote. I asked John, what's his confidence level in Dak Prescott being the quarterback of the Cowboys 1 year from today when we interviewed him? And he said 65-35, which is as low as I think we've heard some of the odds recently. I talked to, we posted it within the Love the Star channel here, our interview with Todd Archer. And I'd asked Todd, I said, hey, do you think any Cowboys fatigue has been setting in for Dak over the last year? He's like, definitely. I think there was some of it in training camp last year, maybe subsided a little. But he said, look, if they play with this a little too much and he gets to the beginning of training camp, or it gets to the beginning of the league year next year, somebody will pay him the way they do Kirk Cousins, and he's gone. Yeah. Like somebody's going to pay him what you have not. And so this is there's more chatter here, and we hear Dak in the last couple of weeks say, hey, if the future's somewhere else, so be it. Again, conversations that we haven't really had here typically over the 8 years that he's been in Dallas. Brian, what is your best guess right now? Is it 50-50 for you on 1 year from today, May 8th, 2025, that he's the quarterback of the Cowboys? Are the odds a little better than that? I mean, Stephen Jones saying he's a priority, but a lot of times we have seen rhetoric does not always match up to the actions that they take in negotiations.
Let me ask you this then, Bob.
Hit me.
I could see them getting a deal done, but I could also seeing it be a short deal. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, look, Dak. I think Dak is. Todd France is willing to get him to the market again as quickly as possible.
I don't know if he has to be the highest paid guy. I think it could be close, but I think it could be close on a shorter term deal. That's how I think this would work. I know the Cowboys would like to do something really long term. I mean, every team wants to have
They want the Patrick Mahomes 15-year deal. Everybody does.
Everybody needs that deal. But there's a side of me that believes that this Todd France, he's a very good negotiator, and he is going to make it very difficult on the Cowboys. And I think he's going to try and once again make it a very short deal. We've seen it work in the NBA, and I know the NBA and the NFL are two different things, but shorter deals get guys back to where they can get money quicker.
Yeah, and look, let's be honest about Todd France really quickly, who's a great negotiator. Long before Dak Prescott was repped by Todd France, the Cowboys were not huge fans of Todd France.
No,
he is a difficult negotiator. He's a good one, and that's probably a sign that he does his job well. The fact that the Cowboys don't like negotiating with him, but I know the Cowboys view it as it can be difficult sometimes, and so no doubt about it, that aspect has existed before the Dak negotiations, and once you get Dak a new contract, and it was kind of as messy and tense as it was, that kind of, maybe lays the groundwork for another tense negotiation. Now, it's interesting. He gave an interview back in 2017, I think, with Zach Klein of WSB TV in Atlanta. Todd France did. And he had talked about do poor negotiations with a team ever linger into the next negotiation? Which is perfect setup right here for what we're talking about with Dak. And he actually said that he thinks you learn certain things about each other and you have a better understanding when you come out of the other side and you go into the next one, that you have better expectation. You also know, like, okay, I can't trust this necessarily, or, oh, they said this, or, so like you learn a little bit and go, okay, we know how we each operate, and you have a better handle on it. So you would hope that would work well this time, but I mean, to this point, it is not. And you know, Todd Archer suggested with us, Brian, that it could be just as much Dak Prescott wanting to wait as it is the Cowboys.
Yeah, no, I don't. There's a side of me, though, that maybe Dak Prescott, for all the good things that you mentioned, all the wins and finishing second in MVP and all the positivity about Dak, you know, the playoff stuff is something that hangs over his head. And, you know, maybe that's something that weighs on him a lot. I do feel like, though, there's a couple of guys that have chips on their shoulder. I think Dak Prescott's one of those guys. I think Mike McCarthy is one of those guys that, like, how can you, and I've said this on several platforms, and I apologize to folks when I say it again. The number of games that Mike McCarthy's won the last 3 years in Arizona, Atlanta, Carolina, they would have a statue in front of the stadium with him up. But here, it's a totally different game. Yeah. And I think that Dak Prescott might be a little, as you used the word, fatigued by having to stand up there and take all the arrows that he takes. You know, nationally, locally, fan base wise, worldwide. I think there's a little bit of like, you know, if I go somewhere else and have success, I'll show you MFers. You know, you might not like me here right now, but the minute I'm gone and you start playing with Trey Lance and you don't win 12 games and you don't win that division, you're going to miss me and you're going to wish you hadn't thrown all those or shot all those arrows at me. And
I can just play football. I don't have to take every single, like Todd Archer brought up, the highs are really high in Dallas, the lows are really low, that you have to take every single thing. It gets magnified. The simple little touchdown pass, it's incredible. The interception that wasn't your fault, well, you are just throwing this franchise away, and that can wear you out.
Yeah, I think that Dak is a very strong person.
Yeah.
But nobody likes to face criticism 24/7. And he faces criticism all the time from guys like me, from guys like from Todd Archer. You know, there's people out there, Stephen A. Smith, you know, Dan Orlovsky. There's guys out there that are willing, and gals too, that are willing to say, well, they need to be better here, and the pressure of this and the pressure of that. I think Dak would. I think if Dak had the opportunity to go play somewhere else and have some success, much like, say, a DeMarcus Ware did, to go on and win a Super Bowl and, you know, kind of say, okay, I went out and did it for me. I don't think that's something that we should just say, oh, well, he isn't thinking about that. I think he's thinking about, you know what, there could be a life beyond the Dallas Cowboys for me if I get to that opportunity. You know
where I think he, honestly, if this happens a year earlier, if he hits the free agent market 2 months ago instead of next year, you know where I think he's playing this year?
Let me guess. Maybe he's the guy going to Atlanta.
Washington.
Do you?
Yep. I think if you're telling me that Dan Quinn goes over there and says, I can bring Dak in here, who is the perfect stable face to lead this organization out of the dark Dan Snyder times and is the perfect level personality. I know exactly what I'm getting. I can pair him with Brian Johnson, his quarterback's coach at Mississippi State. Cliff Kingsbury can come into the NFL after a few years away of game planning and create some really creative stuff for him. You know, it will be, like you talk about, building statues for a guy who provides stability in a city like that. And then you tell me I can use the number 2 pick and all these picks I have in the top 100. I don't have to address quarterback with that. I can hold somebody for a ransom to come up and get a quarterback, and then I can make more picks and build out this roster with all the cap space they had. They had $90 million in cap space entering this offseason. To me, I honestly think, and the idea for Dak of, okay, I'll show you in the division. I'll show you over in Washington. Right. I honestly, if this would have happened 2 months ago, alternate universe completely, I think that ultimately you might be looking at Dak Prescott in Washington if this would have happened before that.
Bobby, the way you laid every bit of that out makes perfect sense. I was thinking, Atlanta, they've got some skilled guys, maybe weapons and stuff, and new coaching staff. But Dan knows him, and you mentioned the offensive coaches that know him as well with the Commanders.
Biotish is there at center.
I can't say that I can shoot anything down that you just said.
You might be lucky. Now, if you're a Dak Prescott fan, you're probably lucky this isn't happening now because, like I said, and I've had that discussion a couple times with people, and some have been like, it's not like just some people in league circles, and they're like, it's not a bad thought, maybe. Because, you're talking about, at that point, the different ways that they can use their resources. They may still have said, nah, we'd rather go with Jaden Daniels. That's cheaper, and we can operate that way. But ultimately, there's Dan Quinn would, if you ask Dan Quinn, hey, would you like Dak Prescott here? Dan Quinn would tell you, yes, I'd love him here. Brian Johnson would tell you, yes, I'd love him here. Those are guys who know who that man's character is.
What happens to you is a couple of things. That if all of a sudden they hit on Jaden Daniels, then that helps Dan Quinn keep his job.
Yep.
Dak Prescott could absolutely build you, give you stability to keep your job the first couple of years. You might find a way to go 9-8, or 10-7, and you finish second in the division. It happened to us in Green Bay with Brett Favre. That Mike Holmgren, once we got Brett starting, we finished 9-7, one game out of the playoffs. It set us on a run, never to be bad again. That kind of thing. So, having the right quarterback can help a new coach start the program and then maintain the program through more than just 2 or 3 years that a lot of these coaches get.
It'll be interesting to watch the way the Cowboys approach it, but Stephen Jones, like we heard there, he's saying he's a priority. So we'll have OTAs and minicamp and everything else coming on the horizon here shortly, and we'll get a chance to hear from Dak a little bit more throughout that process. You are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time for our Dean Julia Love the Star mailbag. We're going to turn things over to our dear, sweet listeners, get some of their thoughts, some of their comments, their questions, their concerns. And the first one here is from Jace. And Jace is asking, is there a legitimate concern about how thin the defensive line is? Can Mike Zimmer effectively run his defense, given how little they address defensive line depth this offseason?
Well, it's something that if you look at the names, and there's, depending on what you do with Parsons, but you're going to need something from Sam Williams. Justin Rogers as a 7th-round pick, I think is going to have to try and find a way to give you something depending on what happens with Mozzie Smith.
Even with Mozzie, you might need
Chauncey Golston is another one of these guys. Marshawn Nealon, another guy.
Carl Davis.
I'm not banking on Carl Davis.
You're not banking on him, but you might have to early if you don't have bodies.
Okay, well,
you might have to put him in the rotation.
How about Junior Fehoko? How about guys like that? How about guys that, that's kind of where I'm at. And I think that if you look at the roster, how it currently is as we get to camp, I am keeping an eye on the waiver wire and watching some of these other teams.
Yeah.
With the depth, and I'm going to, maybe it's a surplus situation. We always talk about that. Maybe you get into a surplus situation where all of a sudden, where these maybe Kalen Carson all of a sudden emerges as the nickel, or he's playing outside, which allows Bland to play nickel. Now all of a sudden you're moving Jordan Lewis for some surplus.
Yep.
Or you're moving somebody for some surplus. Maybe you're moving one of these. Maybe you're moving one of these offensive linemen. That to me is I'm keeping a keen eye on what's going on around the league at training camp with these defensive linemen. I'm trying to okay, if somebody makes a mistake and puts somebody out there, then I'm going to be ready to pounce, or I'm going to be ready to make a move if I have to. But
which offensive lineman do you think would be most intriguing to teams across the league? Ball, let's go. Richards, which depth piece would you try to move?
Do you consider trading TJ Bass?
I don't want to. Can I get somebody to take a Doga?
Well, I don't think anybody would take a Doga. What I'm trying to do is
I know you're trying to hurt me.
No, but what I'm doing is maybe
if BB's who you think he is and Guyton's who you think he is, you can move Bass.
Yeah, see, with Nathan Thomas too.
Hoffman, maybe Hoffman.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm kind of saying. I think the guy that the league missed on was TJ Bass.
Oh yeah, no, I think
they missed on him. TJ Bass, honestly, should have been picked where Awesome Richards was in the 5th round.
Yeah.
If you want to really be really.
You want to talk about old school, just power on the interior. Bass plays with power.
Yeah,
that's a powerful guy.
If Thomas can show that he's got something as a rookie,
medical concerns with Thomas, by the way.
No question. But if you had to go get because I don't think I'm going to get anything for Awesome Richards. I might, maybe not as much as I want. I don't think I'm going to get anything from Josh Ball. Josh Ball has been here 4
years now.
Yeah, since 2001, 4th round pick.
21.
What did I say?
2001.
Oh, I'm sorry, 20. Yeah, 21. My bad. But 4th round pick. I just don't see it right now. I just don't. And so, to me, Matt Waletzko, he's got the shoulders that he's gotten fixed. Would somebody want somebody like that? I don't think so. If I had to power rank them, what I think of ability, I would say Awesome Richards, Waletzko, and Ball. But
so you think you're looking more like a Bass or a Hoffman if you want to try to move something?
I think if you really want to get a quality player defensively, maybe defensive lineman, I would consider trading TJ Bass. That's if all the other things pan out. Thomas.
If the Cowboys really like John Stevens, and if their undrafted free agent tight end comes through, what about Schoonmaker? Would that be a trade piece?
I'm on the Luke Schoonmaker.
I love it. I buy into him. I want to believe in the bounce back. But given depth, if somebody said, "Hey, we like Schoonmaker," and he kind of fell out of favor for you,
would somebody take Hendershot over Schoonmaker?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Hendershot only went undrafted, apparently. At least some things you hear, he was a good player for them his rookie year. But, apparently people thought Hendershot was going to be drafted in the Oilers, and he wasn't, as some teams had flagged him for some stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Some off-the-field stuff from just young college stuff. But, it's an interesting question. You've got tight end depth if you need to move somebody.
Right.
So, it's right there. All right, let's go to the next question here from Matt Holleran. Matt wants to know, hypothetically, okay, this is one of your favorites, Brian. It's where I give you options and you get to pick a duo that you get to keep. So hypothetically, hypothetically, if you could only afford keeping 2 of these players long term, which duo are you picking and why? So the first one, and long term, you're talking about some veterans here. Dak Prescott and DeMarcus Lawrence. So you get to pick this duo to re-sign. Dak Prescott and DeMarcus Lawrence, Zach Martin and CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons and Deron Bland.
Wow. That's really good.
That is good because it's challenging me in a few ways. First, Dak is the quarterback, obviously, and that's the position you most need to be stable. And coupling
that's
him with...
That's a great combination of guys, though, by the way, because
it makes it hard.
Zach Martin, I think, is at the end or near the end. And CeeDee Lamb, I think, is right at the beginning.
Lamb, if you ask me right now, out of all the 3, Lamb, Micah, Dak, who would I, if you told me I could only keep one, I'd probably say Lamb. Because I think he's such a difference maker, and I don't have to guess about him. Dak and D-Law, you're talking about, it's the only combo on the list that has an offensive and defensive player, and it's the quarterback position. Lamb is the easiest one to me of the big guys to re-sign. And then when you drop down, Parsons and Bland, that's the combo of two young guys. But obviously you wonder about, okay, is Micah gonna mature into the pro you want him to be? You've already paid Diggs. Is it something where if you had to make some cuts, would you prioritize the second cornerback? So it's an interesting grouping.
Can we switch it around a little bit?
How do you want to switch it around? Did he make it too tough on you?
No. I mean, it's a great question. It really, really is.
You should ask G-Bag it.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to bring this
week.
up. Thank you so much.
Shout out to Matt Holleran.
Matt Holleran. Thank you, Matt. Hell of a job. What if I put Dak and CD together against Micah and Bland?
Dak and CD. I don't even think about it.
You don't even think about it?
Nope. In this particular combo, I think I might take Micah and Bland.
Yeah.
Of the three. But man, I don't know.
So the fact that we're talking about moving on from the quarterback, that says a lot.
Well, it's who you're pairing them with. Like, I got to take
That's
the
what
two.
I'm saying.
I got to take the two young guys. I got to take the two young guys. If you're going to give me the three.
Yeah, I could take out Lawrence.
Yeah.
I could take out Zach Martin. And now I'm like, all the things that Sean Sharif has talked about on your show in the mornings about Micah Parsons, that's not phony stuff. That's not.
No, there are questions.
There's questions there.
People feel he needs to mature.
Yeah, I'm sorry, folks. This is reality. This is something I tried to tell you 7-8 months ago, and everybody was like, "Oh, you're a hater" and all that. But it's true. There's people. The thing about it is, though, the concerns are within the organization. The concerns are not with Jerry or Steven. That's the difference. That's the difference right now. So, I would have a hard time getting rid of my quarterback, but I understand. And man,
I think I'm going Micah Bland with these three. If you make it Micah Bland or CD Dak, I'll go CD Dak. But if you're telling me it's this combo of these three, I think I'm taking Micah Bland.
Man, I might end up with. I know how important Lamb is going to be to this
Lamb is
team.
so good.
Yeah,
I have the fewest questions about CD Lamb.
I have a hard time, and I love Zach Martin, but I think Zach Martin is near the end. I think Zach Martin thinks he's near the end too.
Yeah, I think that's why Zach Martin held out. He needed his last. He wanted. All right, let's get one last payday before we head off into retirement. So it's a great question. I think. Which one are you going to go with, Brian?
I'll go with the Parsons Bland one.
All right, so we're in agreement there. Parsons Bland. So there you go, Matt. Great question that had us sitting here scratching our head. It's fantastic, and you need to kick that around with the G-Bag boys.
What if you did? What if you did Dak and Bland,
or Micah and CD?
Yeah.
Ooh. Man.
See, I think the obvious thing is Mike and CD.
I think it is, yeah. Mike and CD. Probably.
Listen. I'm not.
But if you're asking, it's hard.
I'm not interested in getting rid of the quarterback
because I've already got the thing with the Bland equations. I'm thinking I've already got Diggs signed.
Yeah.
I've got Diggs and I just drafted Carson. Now here, I'll throw you one more before we get out of here. This is I'm going to combo one of these pay guys with a rookie. Okay, so I'm going to give you Guyton and Parsons, Lamb and Beebe, Dak and Nealand.
Lamb and Beebe.
Easy? What if I make it Lamb and Nealand, Dak and Beebe? With Micah and Guyton.
Then I think Beebe's the key to this thing, believe it or not. Because I think that's my center. And I've been screaming all.
You want the center position fixed,
I want it fixed.
He's smart and he's powerful and he's going to cover a lot.
Wrong about this guy,
but man, you know the only guy that gives me a little bit of pause. Not with BB, not that he's the same player.
I'm not as high on Nealon as everybody else is.
Well, that's why I adjusted a little bit.
I'm high on him as a run defender, I don't know about
It's a projection.
Yeah,
it's a projection a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny. You know, the one guy that I think of with BB where I'm like, man, are we in love too much with a day 2 interior guy? You know who I think of when I think of that concern? Remember Will Hernandez? We were all really
from
different. Yeah, different player, but everybody was really excited about Will Hernandez.
No. I think that BB is more athletic.
He is more athletic, and BB's got the ability to play center, whereas Hernandez was pretty much just a guard.
Wow.
But it's interesting.
No, you're right. You're right, man. Tough, bully.
Yeah.
But the thing about BB is, if he didn't move well, I wouldn't have this love.
Hernandez didn't move very well.
Not at all.
And that hurt him at the NFL level.
Not at all.
And so,
not even at UTEP. He was really a straight ahead player is what he was.
Absolutely. All right, that does it for us here today on the Love the Star podcast. You got Brian shaking his head over here still. Thank you so much for joining us.
I got an off day. I know. And ponder this now.
This is gonna wreck your off day. You're gonna be sitting here pondering all of it. So thank you so much, Matt Holler. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you so much to Chill Boys, chillboys.com, promo code STAR. That's the one thing that I do know is that while Brian is sitting here stressing it, he won't be sweating his balls off in the process. I do know that because he's got Chill Boys and he's also got the comfortable socks. For Brian Broaddus, I'm Bobby Belt. We will talk to you guys again later. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.